Hi everyone, I'm Stu.
And I'm Sarah, and welcome back to the 300 Bird Challenge.
You know how it works, we're trying to see 300 birds this year. In this episode we're in the southwest of Ontario, and we're asking the question, is the 300 Bird Challenge in doubt? Stay tuned, we'll talk more about that and where we are after this quick intro. Okay, welcome back. Sarah, where are we on this first stop?
We're at Hawk Cliff near Port Stanley.
Talk more about that in just a second, but some other stops on this video will include Rondeau Provincial Park, where we're planning to camp for a couple of nights, and Hillman Marsh too, probably. Other places are a little bit up in the air, but that's the general area we'll be staying in, and it basically depends where some of the target birds are that we want to see. There's still a few warblers we want to see and a few shorebirds, so if any of those show up and we hear about it, we'll be shooting off to those locations, but that's the general area we're in. Anyway, let's explore this particular stop first. Let's take a look around. This video takes place in parts of southwestern Ontario, and as Sarah mentioned, we're beginning at Hawk Cliff Woods, just south of London and near the shore of Lake Erie. We've just walked into this kind of flower garden. It has lots of native plants and quite attractive to butterflies and pollinators, and a few birds have flown in. We're seeing goldfinch and a few other things. I think it's an immature Baltimore Oriole we're seeing. It might be an orchard. Lots of birds flying around. Hard to get the camera on them, but we'll keep trying. There were plenty of goldfinch feasting on the seeding plants. And catbirds too, including this multi-looking individual. Here's a hungry red-eyed vireo feasting on dogwood berries. These fruits are eaten by dozens of different bird species, as well as other wildlife. Just as we were leaving the garden, an osprey flew over us. We continued further along a gravel path towards a more wooded area. Another hungry red-eyed vireo. I just missed the focus on this shot, unfortunately. Super multi-cardinal, but it's that time of year. Close to that community garden that we were at near the beginning of this video, we kept hearing wood thrush, which is a bird we need. We've only gotten a couple of thrushes. Sarah, can you remember what we've got? We've got Swainson's and hermit thrush. We still need veery and wood thrush, so either of those would be great. We have seen a couple of flashes of thrushes flying past, just brown birds, not good enough to get a identification of it, and we have to get it on camera too, right? So we're pushing into the woods, hoping that we can maybe find one of those two species. Let's see how that goes. We heard the wood thrush several times, but unfortunately it just never showed for us. One of the more showy birds in the woods was this black and white warbler. And views of a hummingbird in a more open area. Despite how buggy and overgrown the trail was in places, we completed it and we began looping back, eventually catching up with a couple of those thrushes that I mentioned earlier. This one is a Swainson's thrush, which we've already seen before, but better views this time. And new bird, another thrush. This, finally, is a veery. We've heard these a number of times, and we finally have one on camera. Okay guys, we've gone full circle and we're back in that community native flower garden. We did see a couple of thrushes on that trail, but difficult to know in the moment what they were. It was kind of dark in there in places. It's one of those situations where I now here don't know exactly what we saw, but having reviewed the footage and edited this video together, you guys will see the caption on the screen and we'll know if we've got a new bird or not, because there's chances that we just saw a veery or a wood thrush. We're not 100% sure. We think the other one was the Swainson's, but again, I should just shut up because you guys will know from the caption on the screen. Looking at these native plants, we've got a milkweed plant here, which is cool because we've got some native species on there too. Some milkweed beetles there, 2 different types. I believe that there's a black stripe on the back of these that's diagnostic to say that it's a large milkweed beetle. And underneath some of the leaves here as well, we have caterpillars. They are monarch caterpillars, so that's pretty cool. Really funky looking caterpillar. A couple of other insects that we saw included this stink bug, sometimes called a shield bug. And this particular lady beetle is not native to Canada, but it is widely introduced throughout much of the world as a beneficial garden and agricultural insect. It's the Asian lady beetle, sometimes called the harlequin ladybird, amongst many other common names. This one comes in a variety of colours and patterns. This one, with orange-red colouring with black spots, is the most common variety. Time to move on now, Sarah?
I think so.
Where are we going to go next?
I think we're going to head to Blenheim Sewage Lagoons.
Good time of year for shorebirds. What's been seen there?
So there's been pectoral sandpipers, white rump sandpipers, and semi-palmated, all of which we need. Also some that we've already seen, but
White rumped I think would be a lifer. I'm not sure about the others off the top of my head, but it'd be good to get any of those towards the 300 bird challenge. So that's our next stop. Stay tuned, back in a bit. We drove to Blenheim Sewage Lagoons. I know, it sounds delightful, but these types of lagoons attract birds. Unfortunately for us, we didn't realise you need a permit. With it being a long weekend, Blenheim municipal offices were closed for 3 days. Well, stay tuned to the channel and we'll try visiting again next year with a permit. We did see this red-tailed hawk at the side of the road. It was about as pleased with the situation as I was. Okay, new plan, get coffee. It was still a little bit early to get to our campsite at Rondeau, so we headed for a place we like nearby. Tell you more after the break. Alright guys, unfortunately, Blenheim Sewage Lagoon, as I mentioned, was a bust for us. We couldn't get access. You need a permit. We didn't know that. We returned to Blenheim to try to get one, but unfortunately the municipal building was closed, and with it being the Labour Day long weekend, it's going to be closed to the entirety of our trip, so we're not going to be able to go there. That's a bit of a blow to us, because there's a lot of target birds there that we were hoping for, and it kind of adds to my concern about the 300 bird challenge and where that's going, something we'll talk about a little bit later in this video. In the meantime, we've come to one of our favourite places, Sarah.
Erieau Marsh Trail.
It's a place we've been quite a few times, but it has always been quite successful for us. A few target species here. We're still hoping for some shorebirds. Hopefully we'll see some of those. Let's take a walk down this trail that leads alongside Rondeau Bay. As I say, we've been here a few times, including about maybe 4 or 5 videos back on this channel during May. Hillman Marsh Trail is on the outskirts of the town of Erieau, and it's a northbound trail. To the east is Rondeau Bay, providing shorebird and duck opportunities. To the west are agricultural fields, so that means that the few trees on either side of the trail are bound by fields and water, which kettles the birds and allows for quite good views. And birds there certainly were. Our best looks this year at a Black-throated Warbler. This one a female or juvenile male. It lacks the burning orange colour on the throat, and the blacks on the face are faded. I'm not sure if this leaf could be in a worse position, but this is a warbling vireo. Tough to see at first, but this is a Cape May warbler. Look for the yellow patch on the lower part of the back. There. Speaking of Cape Mays, we saw tons of them. As we move towards fall, some of the warblers we see in this video will have much less distinct plumage, either because they are juveniles, they're more active females now that they're away from the nest, or they're warblers that are going through or have been through molting. This is a fairly archetypical Cape May with just the chestnut cheek patch looking a little bit worn, but some species become pretty hard to identify at this time of the year, so a mistake or two in this video is possible. Feel free to let me know. This is another good looking male, but this one is less distinct. Peekaboo, another bird that we've seen much more plentifully this year is the Magnolia Warbler. This one, with grey head, is female or immature. Gorgeous bird. I genuinely believe that if you're lucky enough to live along the migratory path of these New World warblers, such as around the Great Lakes like we do, then you're in one of the best places in the Western world to be a birder. Slightly similar looking immature or female northern parula, but this one has no black streaks on the body, thin white wing bars, and only a partial eye ring. Yummy looking caterpillar. Brief looks at an American redstart. And it wasn't just warblers. Here's a red-eyed vireo. After a few weeks of them hiding high up in the canopy, now we keep on seeing them. See you later. Here's a ruby-throated hummingbird. Males have an iridescent ruby throat patch. The males don't stick around in Ontario for as long as the females. Males migrate back south after mating, which for some individuals can be as early as August-ish. Guys, it's a bit like whack-a-mole here at the moment. There's warblers sticking their heads out. You try to get the camera on it, the next thing you know there's something else over here. You don't know where to point the camera, so it's pretty active at the moment. We're seeing quite a few good looks at birds. We looked out from a viewing platform to see what was out on the marsh. Not much of note, and we didn't see any shorebirds along the coastline either. A great blue heron was fishing amongst some reeds, and another one, an immature I think, on the other side of the path. This northern harrier was checking out the marsh menu too. And aside from birds, lots of butterflies pollinating the flowering plants. This is a question mark butterfly. It looks very similar from above to the eastern comma. They can be differentiated by the white marking under the wing. This one has a mark that looks a bit like a question mark with a dot underneath it. The eastern comma lacks the dot and has a mark that looks like, well, yeah, you can guess, a comma. The almost obligatory painted turtles. There are 3 subspecies of painted turtle, and those found in Ontario are Midland painted turtles. Nothing to do with the town of Midland, but because the other 2 subspecies are eastern and western, so this one is from the Midlands. A bit like me in the UK, but these turtles don't have a West Midlands accent as far as I've been able to tell. This is a chickweed geometer moth, and the feathered antennae make it a male. If you're close to marsh or ponds or other frog-friendly bodies of water in August, that's when northern leopard frogs are most active. Speedy Gonzalez here. This is a recently hatched snapping turtle. The mother lays eggs in soft soil or sand away from the water. This hatchling is taking on the task of finding a new watery home. More northern snapping turtles are adapted to frozen habitats, and that means they often don't breathe air through their mouths for the first few months of their lives. Instead, they perform a gas exchange through the skin at the mouth and the throat, which is probably the throat movement you can see here in this clip. They're very vulnerable to large birds like herons and mammals during this journey, as well as vehicle traffic. Phew, made it. Sadly, no shorebirds at the end of this trail, and we're still hurting from not being allowed into Blenheim sewage lagoons as well. We'll hit Hillman Marsh at some point, so maybe that will make up for it. Probably not today, but on a future day in this same video. In the meantime, join us as we return down this trail and then make our way to Rondeau Provincial Park. Stay tuned, guys. Although there were no shorebirds on the rocky edge of the peninsula, we did see some waterbirds out in the bay. Really distant, but these birds are distinctive for their size and shape, especially their beaks, pied-billed grebes. And these are too far away to tell exactly which species they are, but they're a type of scaup. Speaking of unknown species, this is an MP flycatcher. maybe either an alder or a willow flycatcher, indiscernible without hearing them, or taking a DNA sample, and I left my DNA kit at home. Out on the marsh, a wood duck. And a few more warblers for the day, an only slightly faded black-throated green warbler. And telling female blackpoll and bay-breasted apart is tough. If the legs are entirely black, that leans towards bay-breasted warbler. If they have any yellow on them, it could be a blackpoll. And last warbler for now, Tennessee warbler. We haven't seen too many of these this year. This last bird is a little worn looking. It's a thrush. I'm not sure what kind. It's not the best view from behind. This might be another veery. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next stop, Rondeau Provincial Park. Time to check into our campsite. Join us after the break. Welcome back as we get acquainted with our campsite at Rondeau Provincial Park. Located across the bay from Erieau, Rondeau Provincial Park protrudes out into Lake Erie and is probably our favourite park in southern Ontario, though this is our first time camping here. There's a few trails here: the Tulip Tree, Spice Bush, Black Oak, Harrison, Marsh and Warbler Way trails. We're getting pretty good at putting up our tent by now. Look, it only takes us about 10 seconds. Job done, with enough time before dinner that we can do some early evening birding on the Tulip Tree Trail. Although near our campsite we saw this alien looking Chinese mantis introduced to North America. Also this cool northern walking stick, the only stick insect found in Canada. At rest, its front legs extend forward parallel to the antennae to help complete that camouflaged appearance of a twig. Okay guys, tent is up. We're not quite hungry enough for dinner yet, so we thought we'd take a quick look around
The Tulip Tree Trail.
So we've driven down to that. It's a bit further south in the park. We may not walk all of it. We may just do the stretch from the visitors centre to the beach, see if there's anything out on the beach maybe, and then maybe stick our heads into the other section of the trail, see how it goes. We're not expecting to see too much just because it's kind of later in the day, but let's take a look. We'll come back here again tomorrow morning probably. We made our way towards the beach, fairly quiet to begin with except for grasshoppers and crickets, but then... well, we weren't expecting to see too much. We heard some chickadees, and then we saw a yellow-billed cuckoo high up in the trees. That's pretty cool. Fairly elusive bird. They hang around here a little bit more because they're like Carolinian habitat, but it's not a bird that we see too often, so we're pleased to have seen a yellow-billed cuckoo. It's not new for the year, but it's always a pleasure to see one. Onwards along the boardwalk towards Lake Erie. An eastern wood pewee up in this oak. And nearby, an American goldfinch. And yet another Cape May warbler to add to our day's birding. We approached the beach hoping there might be some shorebirds or any gulls or terns. Okay, we had a quick look over by the beach behind me, just a couple of common gulls flying past, Bonapartes and ring-billed. We're also getting eaten alive, me at the ankles because I'm wearing shorts, by horseflies or something similar to that. So we're going to head back towards where we started. We may go past that point. If you're familiar with the trail, it continues into some woods. We may take a quick look there, and then we're going to head back for dinner at our campsite. But let's see if we can just find anything else before we call it a night. Stay tuned, let's take a look. Turning back into the woods, I thought it would be a quiet evening to be honest, but we did get some more sightings. Another magnolia warbler. I don't think I've seen so many magnolias proportional to other warblers as I have this year. Very flighty female chestnut-sided warbler. It helps when they get some food because they hold still for longer. we've just had a wave of warbler activity in this swamp area here. We've had at least black-throated green, chestnut-sided warbler, maybe a magnolia, possibly a few more. We're still continuing to look. We mostly remained observing from this boardwalk overlooking the activity around the swamp. Here's that black-throated green. Oh, beautiful black-throated. This one didn't want to come out, but it's another bay-breasted warbler. To be honest, I'm not sure what this is, except that I think it's a warbler. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Here's a higher resolution photo. Well, here's the obligatory downy woodpecker. Good diagnostic angle for the short beak compared to the hairy woodpecker's proportionally large beak. And here you can see black dots on the white outer tail feathers, which heavily leans towards downy. The light was beginning to fade as dinner time approached, so we began to make our way back. Okay, I think most of the excitement from that warbler explosion has ended, so I think it's time for us to head back to our campsite. Stay tuned, we'll see you in a minute. We drove north, back through the park. Got some pretty nice firewood here for our campfire. It's nice and dry, some really good wood. Unlike some other campsites, mentioning no names. Algonquin! We started a fire and prepared dinner. What's for dinner, Sarah?
Steak, grilled peppers, and Caesar salad.
We also have these cans of lager from Left Field Brewery, which is actually in Toronto, but it's a brewery that we like, and of course it is called Bird Watcher Lager, so we're going to give that a try too. Anyway guys, time for us to head off for the night. Thank you for watching this video. I did mention at the beginning that we're going to talk about the state of the 300 bird challenge and our concerns about whether we can make it to 300 or not. We'll talk about that in the morning. In the meantime, good night from us, happy birding. We'll be back after this break. We woke early the following morning and made breakfast and coffee, while a green heron randomly perched above our tent. After eating, and letting the sun rise a little, we returned to the tulip tree trail. Good morning everyone, we have come back to
The tulip tree trail.
As we discussed last night. The light's not perfect yet for filming, so I thought maybe we could have that little chat about the 300 bird challenge. We're a little bit concerned that we might not hit our goal. We need about another 40-ish birds, and we're now into September. All the good stuff we've already got, all the easy low-hanging fruit, so we're a little bit short on the shorebirds. Sarah, do you want to talk about some of the ones we need?
Well, I mean, it's probably easier to say what we have. We
Sure.
only really have the least sandpiper, black-bellied plover, semi-palmated plover, sanderling. So I think we have about 5 or 6 shorebirds in total.
Yeah, so we could do with getting quite a few more of those. Hillman Marsh later today, maybe, but it's a bit hit and miss there, really. Anyway, because of these concerns, we've basically decided to take a couple of trips later this year that I wanted to briefly talk about. So if you've been watching this challenge from the beginning, you'll remember that we showed you a map, and it kind of covers the areas that we are allowed to bird, where the birds will count towards the 300 bird challenge, and outside of that, if we went anywhere, those birds wouldn't count. So for the good of the challenge, we are stretching our finances and our time off work, and at the end of September we're going to travel to New Jersey, and we'll have some videos from there for you. We're hoping that with the geography of that place, with the ocean on the one side and Delaware River on the other side, and it being a peninsula, etc., those multiple habitats will help us find some seabirds, some shorebirds, and maybe a few other species that don't make it quite as far north as Ontario, for example, brown-headed nuthatch. We haven't got that one yet. And also into December, and hopefully it's not too early in winter, we're going to try and get some more winter birds that we didn't get already at the beginning of this year by travelling to Saxon Bog in Minnesota. Sarah, when's that?
Second week of December.
So we'll have some videos from there as well, because we're spending just over a week in the cold of Minnesota. Happy if we can get a boreal chickadee, pine grosbeak. Sarah, some of the owls?
So great gray or boreal or northern hawk owl would be good.
Great grey is a bird that Sarah's always wanted to see, pushing our luck, but maybe we'll be fortunate enough to find that. Anyway, we're on the Tulip Trail. It's a little bit quieter than it was last night, but we are hearing stuff. Let's take a walk around the trail, see if we can find anything interesting. Stay tuned, guys. Back over the swamp where we stood last night was pretty quiet, so we moved a little further along the trail until things picked up a bit. Another bay-breasted, not looking very bay. It was the morning of the manky-looking bay-breasted we saw a lot of bay-breasted warblers. Very brief black-throated green. Still no new warblers. Here's another magnolia. American redstart. And another black and white warbler. We've just been absolutely bombarded by warblers again. The best kind of bombardment there is. Off camera, we suspected the identity of the next warbler, but we weren't confident enough in the early light and foliage to call it on camera, so you won't hear us reference this, but... Possible Canada. Yeah. New bird for the year, Canada warbler. Towards the end of the trail, we saw this red-bellied woodpecker and one last warbler that we struggled with. It's well hidden, and the only good view is this split-second peek it takes towards us. Here's a distant photo. One of the warblers where the female looks so much more plain than the male. Males are blue with bold black faces and white undersides. This female is well drab. A white mark on the wing is diagnostic, but not in view here. Okay, as you can see behind us, we've reached the end of this trail. We're going to move on to another trail within Rondeau called
The Spice Bush Trail.
Join us there shortly. Halfway between the Tulip Tree Trail and our campsite is the Spice Bush Trail. Okay guys, we're just at the trailhead of the Spice Bush Trail, just having a quick coffee from our flask, and then we're going to take a look, see what we can find. As you can see, it was windier here, and so a bit quieter. Here's a grosbeak to help make sure it wasn't a complete bust. Grosbeak. And we saw a couple of turkey vultures, some starlings, grackles and other common species. A slightly moulty female cardinal too. A little more open on this trail, which means there's less small flying insects around, and that's what attracts the warblers. So we're not seeing as much on this trail. Having said that, we did see that grosbeak, and turkey vulture flew overhead, and we're hearing catbirds, eastern wood pewee, a few of the bits and pieces, but that's about it so far, but we'll keep going. We were beginning to feel disappointed, but into the woods, where it was more sheltered, it did pick up a little bit. Our first Blackburnian warbler of the day. Yet another bay-breasted. Yet another Cape May. And maybe winning the award for the most cooperative warbler in this video. Did I mention that warblers are incredibly annoying to film? Another black-throated green. Our final sighting from this trail, a thrush. I believe that this is a Swainson's thrush. A little bit of a flurry of activity at the end there, but still a bit quieter than the first trail we did this morning. Time for us to move on. We're going to go to Hillman Marsh. Bit of a drive, about 45 minutes. We are crossing our fingers for some shorebirds. It might be a bust, but it's probably worth the effort, because even just maybe one more species of a shorebird variety would be pretty good for us. Anyway, stay tuned. We're going to make that drive now. We'll be back after this quick break. Hillman Marsh is located about 45 minutes west of Rondeau Provincial Park. It consists of a few marsh cells and some walking trails. This large area shown here, looking quite dry at the moment, can be used by thousands of shorebirds migrating through, especially in the spring. Although we're currently at the end of summer, sometimes the odd shorebird can still show up here. Heading through a meadow on our way to the marsh, a hawk wheeled across the sky. This is a broad-winged hawk. Unfortunately, when we arrived at the marsh, things were pretty quiet. Well, we've made it to Hillman Marsh, looking out from the viewing shelter onto the main marsh. This place can be a bit hit and miss today. It really is miss. There's nothing really out there, and it's almost completely dry. There are a few other cells here, so I think we might just take a quick look around since we came all this way. Really it's shorebirds, as I've mentioned, that we're looking for. I don't think we really need any more marsh birds apart from Virginia rail. We'll take a look around. We might get lucky, you never know. Stay tuned. Let's take a look. What else is here besides this viewing shelter? We spotted this juvenile black-crowned night heron nearby. And in some bare trees next to one of the other marshes, as well as a few grackles, we spotted some cedar waxwings. At some distance, a great egret. But after quite a drive and a fair bit of walking, we didn't find anything of note. It was time for us to head back to camp. On our way out, we saw around 7 eastern kingbirds, all hanging out on the edge of a meadow.
4, 5, 6, 7.
And a pretty distant great blue heron. This will be our last visit to Hillman Marsh this year, so until next year, bye! We drove back to Rondeau without much to show for our day trip, oh well. That evening we decided to just relax at camp and pick things up the following morning on our drive back to Toronto. The following morning we stopped in Ridgetown at a lookout platform overlooking a sewage lagoon. Just a kingfisher here, which we watched make a couple of flights over the water. Although, before we arrived at Ridgetown, on the side of the road, in the corner of a flooded field, we spotted this shorebird. We believe that this is a Solitary Sandpiper. New bird for the year. One final stop in this video, Sittler Woods. Sittler Woods isn't marked on Google Maps, but it's near Newbury, east of Mosa Forest, and the trailhead is located off Dogwood Road. For your information, we have always found that you need a ton of bug spray to repel mosquitoes in the forests around this area generally. Initially, we headed into the woods, but then we heard a hooded warbler behind us, the bird that we came for. Plus, the mosquitoes were pretty bad, so we turned back. Okay, after the birding petered out a little bit yesterday, after we went to Hillman Marsh and didn't really see too much, we decided to kind of call it quits. relax at the campsite. And we've come out the following morning. It's Monday, Labour Day, so off work, and we've come a little way to Sittler Woods, and we're on the hunt for a hooded warbler. We did just hear it, although the calling seems to have stopped. We started on the trailhead behind me, but we heard it in the opposite direction. Hopefully that calling sound, which is just like a pink, pink, will start back up again, because we're following the sound. Anyway, stay tuned, let's see if we can find that. That would be a good find for us.
We searched the trees, but the calling sound had stopped. We also walked up and down this gravel road. Suddenly, we heard it calling again.
So there's 3 birds at the moment, distant goldfinch, distant vireo, and the pink sound is the hooded warbler. Okay guys, here's the thing. Sarah saw it, I saw it, didn't get it on camera. We stuck our heads into the edge of the wood to my right, and it was just in there. Nice looks actually, brief but nice, still got pretty nice looking plumage even at this time of the year. Anyway, we have to get it on camera to be able to count it on the 300 bird challenge, so that counter isn't going up. We are also out of time, we need to get back home, back to real life. But stay tuned to the channel, we'll have some new trips within the Ontario area, as well as the 2 that I mentioned earlier in this video, Saxon Bog towards the end of the year, and before that we're going to New Jersey, Cape May, that kind of area. Talk more about that soon. In the meantime, thanks for watching this video. Please like, please comment. We like engaging with you guys in the comments. It lets us know who's watching. Also, please subscribe, that's the most important thing. Really appreciate your support. See you soon guys, thanks for watching. Happy birding. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.